After doing my taxes today, I think I should go on Twitter and scan the last 3,000 tweets so I can archive my Twitter on Internet Archive because nobody is archiving their Twitter. And once Elon Musk gets assassinated or sells the company, all the data will be deleted and we'll lose tons of internet novella history. So I'm going to scan some of my Twitter today as a volume 2, the last 3,000 tweets, put it on Internet Archive. I got to do some other things and enjoy the rainbows here. Just drinking some coffee now. But yes, I have a lot to say on those groups. Probably the first thing I have to say is that, okay, what happened was, in a white nationalist post-Unite the Right view, is that in 2018, everyone started infighting and there was blood sports. Matt Forney, for the longest time, who was MGTOW, associated with Rouge and Aaron Clarey, he started Terror House Press, which was his version of getting his own books out and selling them to make money. But little did everyone know he was exiting far-right anti-liberalism in favor of getting into the compatible transgressive lit. And what that meant is that he wanted to be more like Dennis Cooper or Sam Pink or Tao Lin. Now, that audience is completely opposed to the historical interest of the far-right subculture and whatnot, but Forney thought he could, get Paul Town and publish a book on Terror House and then market it as Dennis Cooper or something. And so what happened was Forney got those associates like Nick D, the retarded faggot twins, even Stain Haynes, some of the more innocent looking guys who were post Proud Boys or just living in New York City. And then the point of Terror House was kind of this rival Matt Forney gang against the Countercurrents gang. But it turns out that the Matt Forney gang ate up the rest of what was the Countercurrents gang because Greg stopped it. He got arrested in 2019. He moved back to his parents in Seattle or something, and Uncle Bill is still in Brooklyn, but he does Buckhead in fucking Atlanta with Jim Goad, and Matt covered New York. So when John Morgan left, Mike Enoch went to Pittsburgh. So a lot of those TRS crowd who were into subculture, Matt Forney was speaking to. And so by early 2020, that's when there was this meeting ground between Richie and Carmen, Al, whoever. We were all meeting. And by 2021, that's when things were really starting off. And Matt was really now saying, oh, I'm associated with Expect Press. Oh, I don't have anything to do with the alt-right. And so what is transgression? Do you consider a fucking trans kid who's a white nationalist openly? I mean, I do have some influence on that, because I was a huge advocate in 2017 of being openly gay and white nationalist. That should be attendant. But now it's coming with the point where it's if you are gay and white nationalist, being gay and canceling people is more important than the ethics of said self. So we look back at Greg Johnson's CC project, and we could just argue how fucking stupid Greg Johnson is. If Klaus Brinker is a gay Antifa informant and he was selling Greg's books and being friends with Greg, and Brandon Kissam saying he's a flirt and saying all this gay shit to Greg. Greg is fucking stupid. This is the first time Greg invited an Antifa informant, had gay sex with him possibly, and then was made himself worse. So there's obviously a personality defect with Greg. Greg says, oh, it's really hard to make me angry. And it's yet he gets the most worst fucking toxic people because he's not really into the ethics of racial HBD like Jared Taylor is. He's more into subculture. And that's what Matt Forney's trying to prove. Forney's trying to say it's about subculture more than anything. However, with that subculture being said, all of them are being in New York City. That comes with the fucking retarded boomers who rule over us, and those children who want to be defiant against their boomer parents are now discovering Matt Forney and Greg Johnson and Jim Goad and that history behind it. And so there's actually some ex-countercurrent writers that went to the DeVere Ball. Matt Pegas went to that. I couldn't, job, but it's weird when you have kind of the post-Robert Stark truth in a room, post-countercurrents, between an older generation and this newer generation who are basically, oh man, the school shooter's this cool kid. That's what it's really about. I mean, you really wouldn't want to be HBD, right? It's just a part of being a Gigi Allen punk rocker in New York. It's a coming to age story, and a lot of this has to be relearned. That's why we're being considered old heads for some odd reason, is because a lot of this are like, I don't know, like sincere white national, sincere racial, like race is real, fascist economy, Zoltanis. I mean, that's what Caleb Maupin argues. Caleb Maupin's a sincere communist, and that's why he's at war with BreadTube, is because he's saying, you know, I want like sincere anti-capitalism. We can't have retards who are like role-playing this. Another thing, which is almost like a mirage to the post-alt-right, is that like after Bloodsports, starting in 2019, there was an incredible anti-capitalist criticism. And I would say that was advocated partially by Keith Woods, who, when his channel was rising, his entire arguments was, I'm a Marxist and Hegelian, and I'm very critical theory, like what Arctos is saying. Yet, you know, Unite the Right was set up. You know, it's really goofy. So a lot of people started criticizing capitalism in the state under the Keith Woods influence in 2019. And then you had like offshoots like the Warden Post, which only lasted like a year. And that was like some kind of goofy fucking Facebook cult. I made a video about that. And yeah, they always thought it was like theory, or like Michael Millerman, like extreme countercurrents, were countercurrents but without Greg's lead kind of ordeals. The issue was what happened. So when PayPal, Amazon, all those big corporations kicked off those classical far-right millennials platforms, that's when BreadTube appeared. BreadTube was engineered by the state to try to say, you know, like this Caleb Faraday, oh, I was watching Stefan Molyneux videos and I became a racist, kind of de-brainwashing that was going on in 2019. The non-compete only had 2K subs. Bosch had 3K subs. By 2021, all of them all of a sudden rose to 30K subs, 40K subs. So between the end of 2019 and up until 2022, for a good 3 years, was the age of BreadTube, the age of an alternative left, something Brandon Adamson was foreseeing all the way back in 2016. But it wasn't based on racial nationalism. It was just an argument against capitalism and trying to say how great Marx and socialism is. And it had that same energy the alt-right had in the mid-teens, from early teens to 2016. But however, the BreadTubers, they were definitely neoliberal, thought slime, ContraPoints, whatever. But a lot of them were DSA shitlibs. They were enforcing the Biden neoliberal state that kind of was advocated by the New York Times. And now that's why we have like Sam Hyde hating on, whatever, Hanabi, or I can't even pronounce his name. This kind of fake broadcast, I'm a shit talker, but I'm a leftist. The dirtbag left Amber Frost, Alex Gendler types. Those people, we basically succumbed the far right and influence backed. And then we had Cumtown. And Cumtown was this meeting way between broadcasting of the right stuff and, I'm not that racist, but I'm very critical. And so there was a meeting ground through Cumtown. And yet at the same time, the rise of Caleb Maupin in the last 3 years too was sincerity against irony and sincerity against this kind of neolib programming bullshit. All the while the far right just kept infighting. The fucking National Justice Party is like a neo-Nazi sect by feds. Johnson is having a gay relation with Jim Goad and he's given up. MREN, American Renaissance, seems to struggle. It's bad. And so who the fuck do we have? Paul Town and Matt Forney? Are you fucking kidding me? Or like Sam Hyde? They're going to be the post-alt-right? We're right now in a bad situation, subculturally speaking. But I will say that the current is anti-capitalist. Another nail in the coffin for a lot of this, especially like the complete, people thought the alt-right was dead by 2019, where that was when the fireworks were going off. That was the end of The Ring, Wagner's The Ring. But I would say the nail in the coffin was COVID. COVID was, of course, controlled by the state. But what COVID did was it told everyone to stay in their house and don't have IRL cult of extroverts meetings. And so what happened was, year after year, since then, 2020 was pretty much all about an issue after an issue. So it is bizarre in 2020 They try to divide between people to say take the vax and don't take the vax. Now, we know what the right answer is. You don't take the vax. Just survive throughout all the bullshit. But for 2 years, there was this incredible wave of the state and other dumb bourgeois people telling you to get the vax. And even worse is when Greg Johnson told people to get the vax. Get the vax. Create Malthusian social control from the very der Dieter, der movement. That's insane. And then Spencer is saying, get the fucking vax. And then all these pre-alt-right people who were against the establishment and wanted to create an ethno-state, get a vax. Because if we had a white nationalist country like the Japanese, we'd all get a vax. Insanity. This has nothing to do with liberalism per se, but the insanity of jumping off a cliff shows you, and this kind of cemented this whole, pretty much nobody was on the same page anymore. And then next year, the Ukrainian-Russia war. And all those same leaders, Johnson, Spencer, whoever, pro-Ukraine. Geo, pro-Ukraine. Wow. And they're not, they're not organizing the Axis powers of China, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, they're not acknowledging. It seems like now the alt-right is just liberalism for whites only, and their arguments are so bad, and it shows you that these old fuddy-duddy Gen X boomer leaders are just falling out of place. They tell you to get a vax, now they're telling you to fly a fucking Ukrainian flag, and oh yeah, now Dark Brandon, Joe Biden, is a white nationalist leader because he was the second Irish Catholic dude, and he's not working for Clown World. So there is something incredibly wrong with white identity, that no one has explained what white identity is, what whiteness is. In fact, it's the fucking enemy. And then followed by that, you now have this kind of bullshit where it's so divided where this is where Forney rose with Terror House. You could be transgressive, that the only values left are this negative XP, I hate women, yada yada, hipster bullshit, where people have lost meaning because there's no good leaders anymore. There's no mimic desire to the idol. Now that we don't have idols, it's dead. This party of what was started by Colin Liddell, Andy Nowicki, Richard Spencer, Greg Johnson. I mean, I don't want to give Mike Enoch credit, but a lot of those old schooler, people, even it seems like Jared Taylor is the last leader and everyone else died along with it, or they just succumbed to other parties. And that's why Matt Forney's Terror House scene is important to a lot of this political development. In the last 10 years, from posting on bodybuilder forum, red pill shit on picking up women, now leads to resistance against anything, and I might as well act like Dennis Cooper, and maybe I'll be accepted by the neoliberal regime or some shit. I want to be very clear on this. If the state can intervene at any time and tell you to get a vax to fuck up your biology, then the state could also one day magically say, we hate black people, we want to exterminate them. We hate Jews, we want to throw them in gas chambers. So the state has that power. Therefore, the idea of a Trotskyist far right or a Gramscian far right of culture war, prison notebooks is bullshit. You can't say My Little Pony is advocating white nationalism. That's just subcultural social virtue signaling. That is what gets you a fucking deal with Vice magazine and whatever fucking hip startup Bushwickian zine is happening out of the white male, Asian female, the neighborhood out of Bushwick, whatever. And that's the problem. That's what Johnson was doing at Uncle Bill's place in Brooklyn anyway, during 2014, what he calls the golden age of my subculture, right? I was there in Long Island City when there was Shia LaBeouf's wall, where like Emily Eucas went up to that fucking wall and we all went on camera to say some goofy shit, and there was that fucking hipster kid with the Black Sun tattoo from Philly, and he poured milk on him. He was a, cameraman for Red Ice Radio or some shit. A lot of those kids, they regret what they do, and now they're completely fucking normies. They were just fucking retards to begin with. But a lot of that, the culture war is bullshit. The culture war, you can't influence people to become white nationalists. This isn't like fucking Peter Popoff, Reverend Leroy Jenkins, take the magic water, transform you. You don't fucking read books and change your mind. You know, you read books not to be a liberal, you're an intellect, but there's a lot of stupid fucking people that will jump off a cliff. And if the state tells you to jump off a cliff to take vax, then culture war is bullshit. You know, countercurrents is a bullshit phenomenon. You can't tell people to become racial white nationalists of meta politics. It's not the new left. And this is the problem in the teen from 2010 to 2020 is a lot of that teenage internet shit. They thought voting in Trump was like heck magic, that there was a current of anti-liberalism. And it's all true, but it's not a fucking culture war. You're not fucking writing papers and changing people's minds. The innocent people, right? There is a natural interest of anti-liberalism, but this isn't manufactured like the new left is arguing for. So that's another nail in the coffin, is that culture war is bullshit. You're not changing anyone's mind. Countercurrents is a fraud project. So in the last 5 years, back on Matt Forney, where we are in 2023. Well, I noticed that there's a congregation in New York City. And again, countercurrents used to have their meetings in far back as 2013, 2014, 2015, they would call it the New York Forum, like a London Forum, this kind of facade, Jonathan Bowden place where they have meetings, you know, with fucking Paul Kiersey, Margaret Mitchell, J.J. Polinsky, the fucking weirdo white nationalist, esoteric Hitlerite guy who lives above a Philadelphia bar or some shit. A lot of those weirdos would meet in that place. And that was like a golden age where you could see Emily Eucas open up for Jason Resinger, Johnny, out of all people. And Greg Johnson would be telling you, none of this happened here. Full disclosure, don't tell anyone this happened. Yada. And then fucking Claus Brinker or Nathan, who's selling the Countercurrents books, is a fucking Fed. It's a fucking Antifa member that Johnson possibly like got with or some shit. You know, it's ridiculous. Greg Johnson makes all these bad decisions, and Brandon Kissam's gay, Shiro does coke, and fucking has his fucking New Jersey house or some bullshit. Ted fucking deals coke to Richard Spencer. I was shocked at this shit in my early 20s. Now I kind of just laugh it off and I say, this is what the skinhead punk soul culture was about. It was about hedonism to begin with. It was about cool kid shit. So Emily Eucas is a grandmother of all this bullshit going about, you know, that we have to deal with now. And Matt Forney was kind of ahead of the game because he saw all this using like Aaron Clarey-esque Roosh knowledge of what was really happening, you know, going back to, you know, the Rollo kind of red pill roots of shit in sorts. A lot of, you know, Greg tends to say, well, my whole point was having the Countercurrents meeting was to put everyone in social networking connection and then everybody working on a grassroots level to have little white nationalist neighborhoods all connected back to my fucking Ponzi scheme. That's what he was about. And then he triples down and claims, oh, there's no organization. It's just me. I just wanted to put you in contact to move a cultural movement, or some fucking Christian bullshit that he likes to say. You know, it's as cringe as him reading the donation lines on Countercurrents or some shit. He is running a Ponzi scheme, and he's exploiting off stupid fucking low IQ wignats from fucking Ohio to get his money. That's what he's really doing. I mean, if on Countercurrents he wants to write your name in the will, some scams going on of sorts. All Greg's friends slipped away from his hands. John Morgan is now this Avolian retard who hangs out with Academic Agent, still believes in this Gramscian far-right bullshit. You know, some of the Philly people, you know, Brandon Kissam, they all left to do gay sex somewhere else. They're all like rejected, subcultural, abused and used, and they turn to normies. They're now all, they're the type of people that say, oh, I survived the toxic subculture or some bullshit. They got self-canceled. I remember when Daniel Freiberg of Arctos was doing like cancel culture against Countercurrents, and he was hanging out with this I think Matt Forney might have been on the podcast, but he was hanging out with this like tattooed chick from Budapest named Melissa something. And Melissa, I loved her gossip column. She was basically saying that John Morgan was an asexual little weirdo that tried to make rounds on her or something. But there was a golden age too of like Arctos in like 2016 trying to smear Greg. I mean, Daniel Freiberg, whatever you want to say about him, I think he's very intelligent and funny. He knew the truth right away. And I got to shake his hand at Unite the Right, but, you know, last time I ever saw him, but he has a family now. But, oh man, like even him talking to Michael Polignano, like Greg Johnson's like little boyfriend from like Atlanta, Georgia, that like at Emory made a whole scene by saying race is real in 98, and Johnson, like, came to the rescue like a Dennis Cooper, George Miles boyfriend shit. You don't know if they ever had gay sex, but it's like Michael Pagliano's long story about how they lived in San Francisco, shared the bottom downstairs room, and okay, yeah, Michael Pagliano, guys, he's hetero, he likes women, he met this Italian woman from like a movie theater, but he had to make sure to go downstairs when Greg had the room for gay sex time. I'm not making this shit up. You know, this is all what Daniel Freiberg got from Mike Pagliano, and then like Johnson sent him to the mental hospital because Mike wanted to have a gun, and now Mike like hates him, and like Mike and his butt buddy fucking Kyle Meshner or Scott Weisball, who fell for the Greg Johnson shit, who's like this fucking 20-year-old twink or some shit, you know, took one of my articles and rewrote it, and now he's being like, oh, Greg's the bad person. I just want to be into white racial politics, but not be. But they're all subcultural fucking idiots. Like Michael Pagliano is on Facebook still posting pictures of the year 2000 when he was saving the right race with William Pierce. He's reminiscing on these 20 years ago, 23 years ago, when he was a kid. I don't know if I think he's bisexual or some shit. But I mean, I don't. It doesn't matter about your sex. I'm not hating him that he's gay or bisexual. I think it's cool that he'd be gay or bisexual. What I am saying is that he's kind of unfaithful character, and I'm not leading up the entire story of like two hedonistic subcultural white nationalist neo-Nazi, love the Gen X days, living in San Francisco and running this fucking Ponzi scheme, saying they're saving the white race while Daniel Freiberg collects this information and tells you who are the fucking weird, you know, this is what makes Matt Forney right. I think I should conclude this here. A lot of the same drama shit, quote unquote drama shit, a lot of the same characteristics are coming out again in this kind of alt-right to transgressive alt-lit pipeline. Sure, we could talk about Tal Lin, Sam Pink, Dennis Cooper, all those names, right? I mean, James Newlick now is kind of Peter Sotos, whatever. Jamie Stewart, he's got a new book coming out of Juju. It all relates in some way or another, but when we're into subculture, it's more about what we look like on Instagram or Facebook. And it doesn't really mean anything, because what really means something is writing. I'm not saying you change people's minds when you're writing, but when you write, there's a power to it of intellectualism, of sincerity. But a lot of this kind of the subculture panders to fitting in. It panders to what the elite and the establishment already want. And they want you basically trying to find Eric Erickson meaning in life, finding place, you're coming to age. This is my first time I had sex. This is the first time I did this. And this is what the boomer elites are obsessed with, this kind of first time idealisms. So you have these like Republican Ben Shapiro voting kids who like fucking move to New York City and they want to hang out with like the urban queers or something, but they have this kind of egalitarian, they still follow the egalitarian mold. They're just fitting in with clown world, right? You know, there's something fucking seedy about a date rape bar. It's all true. And we got it when we know most of the kids who are blogging or whatever are all on drugs. Like whatever happened to fucking straight edge culture, right? It's kind of crazy that they're having the second DeVere ball, you know, was it a trans person runs it, another trans person says they're a white nationalist, and then like, there's ex-countercurrents writers there, and one was like a Puerto Rican woman being like, oh, I miss Pilliter. Why isn't Pilliter at the DeVere ball? What the fuck? Like who is this Korean, or who is this Puerto Rican woman ex-countercurrents writer talking about me? At, what the fuck shows you that? Like, it's just like so goofy and eclectic. It's like, you know, an Ariel Pink plays or something. It's not about white racial nationalism. It's about something else. It's about the romance of it. And they fucking closed their ears and their eyes when I was trying to tell them back in 2018 with this, my queer culture, Bob Black-esque pamphlet. They don't listen. You take a toy away from a toddler and they cry. It isn't fair, you know? Gay white nationalism is real. And now that you have like trans trying to regurgitate what was happening in 2013 at DeVere ball, it's like, I don't know. Is this like progressive, a line of thought? It's all just subculture. And so with that being said, I mean, you have to think about what was Forney seeing. when Matt Forney was bullied for him being him, through all the shit he went through with Jim Goad and Anstar Zinger, his associated with others, how did he make that jump into the alt-lit Dennis Cooper-esque publishing world, and who he's being friends with? And think about these other little subcultural sects too, like it's kind of amazing that like people in 2014, like the Legionnaire started the Pendulum blog from like San Francisco and blocked me on Twitter. And what was calling was Joshua Bennett saying like my friend Hitler or something, and he was like a total TRS guy in the Bay Area in DC, and he was probably at MPI and was at Hailgate. Oh, now he takes it all back, guys. He's like a liberal writer blog and like Kashif Vikaz meta-right bullshit in the Bay Area. Justin Murphy. Yeah, let's clap, guys. If you can have that rich kid like running away shit, it's kind of goofy. Where there is a step forward, and the step forward is that the 20s might be not only the age of the United States dying and China taking over and Asian Aryanism, it's that the far right has acknowledged its subcultural stance. Like Greg Johnson, they're like the old school neo-Nazis of the Bob Matthews types, kind of being pushed to the side, meta-politics, Hollywood Nazi shit of Gen Xers, being replaced by like the negative XP school shooter, ironic hipster types, with Johnson still thinks, well, if David Bowie wears a swastika, he's advocating white racial nationalism. Just like Philip K. Dick was a white nationalist against the Jews, and that makes a great argument. No, bullshit. I don't care about your opinion or like you working on the text like that. And it's not like this objective research or anything. It's just this like cause and effect of liking and consuming things. Like, it's just like I like gays. I think Frankenstein is gay, just like I think Philip K. Dick's an anti-Semite. And then I'll implode it to a roundabout into Carl Schmitt political theory. And that's why you should read Countercurrents bullshit. Will the far right make a return? Well, my only solution right now is to watch more Caleb Maupin and Gabriel Rockhill, especially tune into Gabriel Rockhill's critical theory workshop and listen to his lecture on Slavoj Žižek being a court jester of capitalism. A lot of what Gabriel Rockhill is saying is right about how the left was operated by the CIA. You can actually say the same thing about the far right. The only cool like subcultural far right guy happening right now is Thomas777. He had a book called Greatest Post. He's a really funny guy, Thomas777. He hates Greg Johnson. He's like an old school, like Chicago, skinhead street brawler, neo-Nazi type. He says a lot of powerful things, but, that lifestyle comes with being like an ex-meth addict and all that. And it goes to show you what authenticity really is. Back to that like skinhead subculture. But in a way, we can't ask for all Jared Taylors. Once in a full blue moon, we'll have Thomas777s. By the way, a great writer, but it's subculture. Still, it's an attitude. Still, this is what like New York fetishizes on, And this is why I think like talking about Asian sexuality and white male Asian female is more important right now in the Lorentz scheme of things, because China is invading America. And Asian studies right now is needed so much in 2023. And I'm solely convinced, studying this kind of Lacanian French theory between the white male Asian females, the most important thing going on right now. But I'll leave it as that. I think I said what I had to say. This is Pilliter, and I record this on February 16th, 2023.